Do you still remember being a student? Maybe you're still in the middle of it. But if not, let me paint a picture. Students find themselves today struggling with school and indeed with life as a whole. Research shows that about 40% of all students suffer from depression and anxiety symptoms, and more than 50% of all students experience an unhealthy amount of stress. Education has gradually become preoccupied with performativity, measurement, accountability, and efficiency. And this preoccupation, obsession really, comes at a high price, as it erodes meaningful learning, inner motivation, and reflection on questions about being and becoming in the world. In the past 7 years, I've been doing action research, guided by the question how to create space for students to live their existential questions. And that is not how to transform the academic world into a therapeutic paradise or nightmare, as you might be thinking right now. It is how to breathe new life into the core of education. And then I had a golden chance to start a common inquiry of how to move towards more meaningful education. It was in meeting Sarah, which is not her real name, as she would like to stay anonymous. It started during conversations in a course where she also had to reflect on her personal development. In her course reflection, Sarah stated, I asked myself the question, what is the effect of the current educational system on me? In thinking about this question, I start to connect the dots. I was able to link my weaknesses to the educational system. And within this system, results, products, and grades are the main ways of showing one's capabilities. And there's little acknowledgement about processes, relationships, and personal development. It became clear to me that this result-focused system changed my perception on what I deem important. I let the system alter my priorities and abandon my values. I was moved by the painful honesty of her words, and at the same time excited, as we seem to have similar questions, which ultimately boils down to the question, have the deep shadows of the educational system also covered ourselves? I invited her for a common inquiry, and she said yes. So we started writing letters about what we encountered in living with this question. But in letting her words sink in and becoming more engaged with this question, I also felt resistance. Allow me to introduce myself in our inquiry. Your words feel like a testimonial. There's no way anymore I can deny how this educational system has an impact on students. And I reckon there's a part in me that wants to deny this painful reality and the so difficult consequences of taking a firm position within this system as a teacher. And then I noticed I wasn't the only one meeting resistance. Allow me to share Sarah's response. In general, I deal with systems by resisting them. This critical attitude I already developed during high school. I noticed how ridiculous it is to exist in a system that benefits no one except for the people who build it. I doubt there's any system that I allow to change me or my values. Not anymore. Well, except for the educational system, apparently. In her resistance to systems, Sarah didn't accept being an inherent part of them, and the system a part of her. I guess all we could do at this point is move on with living our questions. And in doing so, we were guided by the letters of the poem and writer Rainer Maria Rilke, who I brought into our exchange. To quote him, "Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, as if they were locked rooms or books written in a foreign language. Don't search for the answer that could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. So live the question now, and then perhaps someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, lead your way into the answer." And this is how Sarah experienced that in practice. I decided to take it a bit easy in the next period. I started following courses which are focused on personal development, which largely impacted my question. In the course Intuitive Intelligence, we focused on the present. This helped me to stop worrying and overthinking too much. It introduced me to exercises such as mindfulness and meditation, which helped me to gain a perspective on the now. I was able to take a step back and to look at things differently, which helped me in evaluating how my question moves me. Meanwhile, I also had many sources of guidance and inspiration, including Sarah. I don't want to look away from this pain. Not within education I feel so passionate about. So thank you, Sarah, for bringing me by this pain again. Sometimes I think, why am I staying in this system? We should destroy it as soon as possible. But it is not that easy. I realize that we can change the system only from within. We can change ourselves as part of it and take our share in changing it. It is, to quote the American scholar Donna Haraway, about staying with the trouble. And by entering into this dialogue, we essentially created a space to live our questions, which was not an easy thing to do. It took the courage from both of us to do things differently. And here, the system, in this case represented by her parents, starts resisting Sarah. I noticed when I did take another year, my parents weren't so happy about it. They thought, you couldn't do it. Why would you take an extra year? Everyone finishes in 2. But it is not like that. I know it's not. But they don't know. Because they don't experience what I experience. They don't see what I see. I've got friends who got burnout and everything as they collapsed due to the pressure. I myself also experienced systemic resistance, but then from my colleagues. After my research, I stumbled upon a new challenge, as I discovered that colleagues with an academic career had usually not learned to create safe space for deep reflection and genuine education. I was surprised that they were not used to be open and vulnerable in creating a genuine relationship with students. They related safety more with a distant relationship in trying to stay away from what they saw as potential trouble. Despite the well-intended pushbacks from some colleagues, and indeed from the system itself, I was able to continue, mainly through perseverance and community building. And by now, I realize that more and more colleagues are beginning to embrace the space for questions. Allow me to share an example. In one of my courses, I replaced learning goals with guiding questions. Students were asked to reflect on how their question unfolds during the course. And I read their reflections, and I saw that by living with their questions, students actively related to the content and brought it to life within themselves, thereby becoming both more knowledgeable and more passionate. But Sarah found her success more outside of the system. I feel like when I have dinner together with friends, to take space for talk, that just really helps. Also, to get your mind out of your worries. It gives you a here and now, when you want to be present. You talk to people what they've been doing, about what their worries are, and you help each other out in some way. Sarah acted upon being sociable again, which is one of her most important values in life. She is sadly abandoned due to the detrimental forces in the educational system. And being sociable is essential in any system transition. I learned that in changing systems, you have to enter them as a community. This is where the focus turns from outside and result-driven in a system to inside and question-driven in a community. Sarah found her grounding not only in the community, but also in herself. I wanted to finish my studies. Therefore, I had to do my homework, write my papers, make my exams, and meanwhile, I forgot why I was doing this in the first place. Why did I start the studies? What was my motivation? But also, what did I learn? And what am I going to do with it, and why? So having time to sit back and reflect on questions like these was very meaningful to me. I got my motivation again. I'm doing this also for myself, not only because I have to do it. And that made me ready to go and write my thesis. Here, we see the profound power of existential questions to ground students in their motivation and drive. Unfortunately, all that glitters is not gold. And in the end, we were confronted with the system and with ourselves. As Sarah expressed by stating, some students are just very result-focused, and you cannot really get it out of their head. That is hard for me to deal with during group work. It's a strong force, you know, especially when you're in the final parts of your study where you have already so much knowledge. Students are just like, I know this, I've done this before, I can do this now again, and I will get a good grade. Needless to say that I also run into my incapabilities within the system. In facilitating a training outside of the university context, I became aware that somehow I became less attuned to my participants and sometimes even judgmental. Where did this come from? Before entering the university, I was always tuned into my participants. And suddenly I recognized the moment I start compromising these qualities. I become judgmental because I can see no other way in quickly growing through the grading. So it is when I have to assess under time pressure, and I see no other way in just quickly going through the grading. And the system keeps striking back. Also, when creating meaning should be most meaningful, and Sarah is most vulnerable. Yeah, it keeps hurting how the system is pushing on me. I'm going to write my thesis. I'm going to find results. They say at least something, but they don't say everything, because it is just a master thesis. But then the final result is so important. And why? My thesis is not going to change the world, but the whole process of doing field work changed me. And why is that not the important part? The magic of this story is that Sarah, without noticing it, transformed in living with her question. She no longer lost herself due to the pressure of the system, thereby accepting that this pressure would always cause pain. She was in tears and kept her integrity. In listening to the recording of our talk, I was again deeply moved. I heard myself speaking with a garish voice, trying to be the good research partner, focusing on results, and thus trying to control, just like the educational system does. I'd worked so hard during the past years, and it seemed like without any result. I was drowned. And in pulling myself out of this, I had the risk of losing it all. And I was willing to take it. There's not so much left anyways. And Sarah had shown me the true value of living with your questions. And I'm willing to risk anything for that. We are living in a world where we are more and more led by systems, thereby manipulating our emotions. System builders know what science has known for decades, and educational institutions have still not fully incorporated, and that is that gaining knowledge and truth is gained from our emotions and being in the world. If we want to teach our youngsters how to act in dealing with an uncertain future, we have to teach them how to be in the world. The genuine search for knowledge and truth can only take place when creating a genuine relationship to the self. Now is the time to come to acknowledge that a true core of education is existential. Now is the time to come to transform our result-driven systems into communities of meaning-making, to give Sarah and I, to give young people the same space that Sarah and I have taken against the forces of the system. Thank you for listening.